couple of weeks I've been working my way through The Savior's Champion. Was it any good? Kinda.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So, for those of you who haven't heard, The Savior's Champion is a book written by a woman named Jenna, who is also on YouTube, and she has a whole bunch of videos on writing and like, hey, here's how you do this, and here's how you do that, and it just, general advice. And so that's how I found out about this book. And, she was promoting it like crazy, and after reading it I thought, well, that was fine, I guess, but it really wasn't worth the hype. So The Savior's Champion is about this country named Thesson, right? And there's a woman in that country who they just call the Savior, and she's this sort of god or demigod-like figure who just brings prosperity to the land. Like, as long as she's there, like, the land is fertile, and there's no wars or anything, and she has powers to heal people, and so they worship her, basically, as a divine being. And so at the beginning of the book starts off with one savior actually being killed and the next one being born, and then it cuts forward 20 years, and the next savior is old enough to now be married, so they actually hold a tournament to determine who will be her husband. Enter Tobias, who is our main character, and he really only joins the tournament to try and take care of his mom and his sister, who they've been in dire straits ever since his dad died, and his sister actually became a cripple in an accident. And basically the rest of the book is just the tournament. There's not much else to it. I actually thought that this was a standalone book at first, but the end makes it clear that there's going to be a sequel at some point, and I guess that's fine, but until the last like 20 pages I was thinking like, wow, they're gonna wrap this up really quickly, and then they didn't really. So that one's kind of on me, but it also does show that this book has a little bit of a problem with pacing, because, like I said, the majority of it is just Tobias in the tournament doing shit, but then in the last less than 100 pages, really, which isn't that much, because this book is almost 500 pages long, but the last less than 100 pages, they finally start dropping hints that, hey, something else is going on, and then at the very end they're like, okay, we're gonna have a sequel where we're doing other stuff. And it really didn't need to do that, because I either have the tournament take up a lot less time in the story if it's just going to be a setup for more stuff, or just have the whole story be about the tournament and then that's the end of it. And this book kind of went into like a weird middle ground, which just didn't work that well. I will say it had a pretty strong opening though, and there were some parts in the middle where the action and everything got kicked up a bit, and there were a couple of points where I was bored in this, but none of them lasted too long, and there weren't that many of them. So pacing wise, it's not bad, it's fine. Now the main character of Tobias is something I'm kind of torn on, honestly, because half of me wants to say that he's bad and annoying, and then around 40% of me wants to say, no, he's actually pretty good, he just has some annoying moments. And then around 10% of me wants to say that he's fine because he has annoying, stupid stuff, but he also has good qualities, and those just sort of cancel out. Honestly, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of days, ever since I finished it. I still cannot make up my mind. Because Tobias, like I said, at the beginning, he's super sympathetic. Like, he's just a normal dude, he's just trying to get by in life, and he winds up putting his life in danger in order to help his mom and his sister. And so you're like, yeah, okay, I sympathize with this guy, and I want him to do well, and just, come on, dude, like, you root for him. And then some bad things start happening in the tournament, and you feel a little sorry for him. But then, especially in the later half of the book, like, he gets super cringy. Like, without spoiling things, when he's around women, he gets pretty cringy a lot of the time, with the exception of Layla, who we'll talk about in a minute. He's not educated, but he also talks and acts like an educated character from a fantasy book, and not like a real educated person, but also not like a realistic uneducated person, so there's this weird dichotomy to him, and also at the beginning it seems like, okay, there's a lot of people in this tournament who are better fighters than him and have huge advantages in terms of strength and all that, but he is smart, so he'll use his creativity and his wits to get out of danger, but a lot of the time it just comes down to, hey, I'm a badass all of a sudden, and he beats his way to victory, so that's kind of stupid and annoying. I guess I could go on about this for a little while, but I honestly just don't know what sort of opinion I want to have on this guy. So, I guess if you read it, you'll have to just decide on your own. A lot of the rest of the character cast is pretty good, though. Like, there's a healer woman named Layla who is working on the tournament with them. Like, you know, when they get injured, she just heals them like she's a doctor for them. And her and Tobias form a relationship pretty early on. I don't think that counts as a spoiler. It's, like I said, it's pretty early on. And, like, she's actually pretty interesting, I'd say. Like, there's a twist around her that I saw coming pretty early on, and the book treats it as though it's like a huge shocking reveal, but it didn't shock me, at least. But even beyond that, like, she's a likable character. Like, she doesn't take bullshit from anybody. She just is sort of doing her thing. She clearly wants to help Tobias, and she does a lot to help him. And she's just friendly when she needs to be, and hardcore when she needs to be. So, you know, I do like her. And I'm not really going to talk about any of the rest of this character cast, because there's a lot of characters in this book. Frankly, there's too many. And that's one big issue I had with this, actually, was just that there's 20 men in the tournament, the Saviors Tournament, and then there's also several of the proctors of the tournament. There's some of the servants that are helping them out, like Layla. There's the Savior herself. There's her father, the Sovereign. There's fucking Tobias's family. Like, and these are all characters whose names we need to remember and who have, like, an actual part to play in the story, and they aren't just there most of the time. Like, they have some actual dialogue and a little bit of personality to them. And there's just way too much going on to actually keep track of the majority of them. Now, there's a couple, especially in the people competing in the tournament, there are a couple that stand out, but for the most part, a lot of them just sort of blend together. And also, everyone in the tournament has two names because they have their real name and a nickname that's given to them. And the book will sometimes switch back and forth between which one we're referring to, and so it's very easy to lose yourself in it. And so, what I think would have worked a lot better here is if they had just left around half of the people in the tournament just unnamed, and just say, like, oh, that guy got hit by an arrow and then he died. And because that's what happens to a lot of them anyways. I don't think that counts as a spoiler. Like, a lot of them just sort of die, and then that's it. There's no fanfare or emotion behind it at all. So, rather than just hitting us with this list of names, that just would have worked a lot better. One thing I will praise about this, though, is just how creative some of the tournament stuff gets. Like, it's not just different rounds of combat where, oh, I'm gonna fight you, now I'm gonna fight him. And it actually does get more creative than that. Like, there's a couple of tests in the tournament that are more mind-focused, like puzzles and stuff. Kind of ironic that I couldn't think of the fucking word for mind when I was saying that, but let's move on, whatever. And then there's tests where they test, like, your ability to write a poem was one. And then there are some that are just straight-up fights. And, you know, there's some real creativity behind this, and I did enjoy the variety of it. It kept things from getting old. I liked that. The biggest problem with this book, by a pretty huge margin, though, and honestly I don't even know if this is going to bother other people at all, or it might just be totally me, but the writing in this is a little bit too good. Now let me explain. At first, when I was reading, something just felt off, and I couldn't explain exactly what it was. And it was gnawing at me, because there was, like, even sections of the book that I enjoyed what was happening, something about it just felt off, and I didn't quite like it as much as I felt I should have. And so I was watching some of Jenna Moreci's videos on writing and, like, what she does, And it started to click into place that just how much she analyzes and works on her writing and gets it to the point where she thinks it's perfect. And what I think she did with that, and I could be totally wrong here, I'm just clarifying, what I think happened was that she put way too much thought into it, and that just sort of sucked the life out of it, if that makes sense. Like writing at the end of the day is an art, and what she did, I think, was she just made it too perfect to the point where it became kind of stiff and robotic, and there wasn't much life to it, there wasn't much of anything to it, really. Like on a technical level, it is very good. I was very rarely confused about what was going on, but yeah, like as a work of art, it kind of falters in that, and that's really a shame. But like I said, maybe that's just me being pedantic or something. But the point is, the writing felt really off to me. I think that's about all I gotta say, really. I mean, like I said, this book was fine. You know, it wasn't really bad by any means. Like, it kept my attention for the most part. But it wasn't worth the hype. You know, I got kind of hyped up seeing all of Jenna Moreci's videos that she was posting about it, and I just was expecting a little bit more, I guess. Like, you know, you should either do an epic, huge fantasy series, or you should keep it small scale. This one kind of went in the middle, and it left me a little unsatisfied, but it's not bad. So if you're into fantasy where it's fairly small scale, but not super small scale, and you just want to see a heroic dude do heroic things, then you'll probably enjoy this just fine. If you're not into that, then you're not going to like this one.